So let's ask the big question, can Zoro surpass the Pirate King Gol D Roger or not? But before that, exciting news, at least for me. I'm gonna write a fan fiction about how Ben Beckman and Shanks met each other. Writing is not a new thing for me. I've been a writer for like last 12 years, but I've never wrote in English, so there is a high chance of me getting things wrong, so I hope you forgive me, but I absolutely love the idea that I have about how Shanks and Ben Beckman met. I'm gonna do the narration and voice acting, and my artist is gonna come up with the arts that I'm telling her to do, and hopefully it's gonna be good. I do not expect this to go viral. I do expect to lose a lot of money, but I want to create the content that I really love. So if you want to share this experience with me, do not forget to subscribe and ring the bell and wait for the video and comment your thoughts about the story that I'm coming up with. That means a lot. Okay, back to the video. Zoro versus every swordman in history. We asked more than 50,000 people, and only 15% of them believe that Zoro can match Roger, with 5% believing that Zoro can truly become the strongest man with a sword in the history of One Piece. These numbers are crazy knowing how much people love Zoro. They're basically saying even though we love Zoro, we cannot respect him equal to Roger. When I'm talking about prime Zoro, I'm not even necessarily talking about end of a story Zoro. I'm talking about Zoro at the age of 40, 45, 50, a prime age Zoro. And while this is an imaginary case, with the help of narrative, we actually can give an accurate guess to his exact power level. For example, we know that Zoro is the right-hand man of Luffy, therefore, narratively speaking, 100% he's gonna be above Dark King Rayleigh in his prime, because the right-hand man of Luffy is above right-hand man of Roger. We should know that Zoro will surpass his great ancestor, Sword God Ryuma, world greatest warrior, and the man with a black blade. Therefore, he's gonna surpass every individual who ever were born in the land of Wano. And above all, we know that by probably next year, he's gonna defeat world's strongest man, Mihawk. And Mihawk is a man comparable to Shanks, and Shanks is a man comparable to Roger with any given sense. Zoro was an ambitious little twat because not only he wanted to be the world's strongest swordsman, he wanted to surpass every swordman in history. And even though we can still debate about what it means to be world's strongest swordsman, at the very least, it is reasonable to assume Zoro, by the end of a story, is gonna wield the strongest blade in the world. Probably he gonna gain the strongest cursed blade in the world and turn that into a black blade. That's my guess. So the strongest cursed blade and a new black blade all combined is gonna be the strongest sword in history. And the odds of Zoro having that is very high. But on the other hand, Roger is also the greatest pirate who ever lived in the last 800 years. So what Roger did is no joke either. I mean, it's one thing to be the best among swordsmen, but Roger was the greatest among every man who called himself a pirate. This means like Zoro is gonna win a great, like in a minor league, but Roger won the greatest prize ever. So when we say somebody is above Roger, we need to be damn careful because this man surpassed every major character, possibly other than Zebek, in terms of power in the last 800 years or so. Another problem that Zoro has is the fact that Zoro, as Oda said, is a true-born armament hockey user, while Roger, Luffy, Shanks, and so on are the most skilled with conquer hockey. So, and by now everybody know that the person who is a master at conquer hockey should be above a person who is a master of armament hockey. But again, one point in favor of Zoro. Zoro is the person with the rarest power in the world. Forget about conquer hockey. These days, everybody have advanced conquer hockey. Forget about mythical Zoan. Forget about the worst of all things. Even black blades aren't the rarest power in the world because two characters have them. Zoro has a specific power of his own, which most likely is a advanced type of conquer haki called Asura. If Zoro be the only individual in One Piece world who can use Asura and he can keep developing this power, Zoro might end up the second strongest character next to Joy Boy itself. And by Joy Boy, I mean the previous Joy Boy and the current Joy Boy, and possibly Emu. Because that power is out of this world. That power temporarily gave enough power to Zoro to land a permanent scar on the body of Kaido. That power is broken insane, and I like to assume other titans of haki like Shanks, Garp, Roger, possibly even Mihawk, of course, why not, can use some type of power like that. And if not, for some magical reason, only Zoro can use that and he can keep developing this and upgrading this power, the limits of this man's power is just unknown to us. One more point in favor of Zoro and Mihawk is their ambition. See people like Roger, Whitebeard, even Shanks, Kaido, Big Mom, everybody. These are a politician slash fighter. They are a captain slash fighter. They are not just want to get stronger. Even somebody as great as Kaido and Whitebeard, they never cared to be world's strongest. Kaido was like, I defeated everybody, so they just called me world's strongest person. But Zoro, Mihawk, and Ryuma, they are professional fighters. All they care about is to be very extremely great in the fighting territory. I would argue people like Roger or even Whitebeard never really cared about how strong they will become in history. Roger wanted to be the greatest. Whitebeard wanted to be a good father. But Zoro wants to be stronger. That's why when I'm talking about the prime Zoro, it means there is an actual difference between Zoro at the age of 25 at 40. Because Zoro just wants to keep stronger, while after a certain point, Whitebeard gave up. But there is finally one possible nail to the coffin of Zoro fandom. They like to assume that Zoro wants to be stronger than every person in the history of One Piece who ever wielded a blade. They don't care about sword skill, and I mean, Oda used the term sword skill in the canon of One Piece, but we still don't know what that is. I'm gonna give that to Mihawk fans. But they like to believe Zoro will be above Shanks. In fact, I'm in favor of Zoro being above Shanks. I honestly am. Shanks, Mihawk, Rayleigh, Roger, Ryuma, everybody. But there is one problem. We have footage of Sun God Nika. And in that very specific, obvious, and clear footage, we have Nika, not Joy Boy, Nika. You see, there is a god Nika, and then his power turned into a devil fruit, and Joy Boy ate that devil fruit. It means Nika is above Joy Boy. Nika is possibly the strongest entity by far in the world of One Piece. And in that footage, we actually can see him using a sword and a spear. And there is a possibility of Nika, just like Luffy, goofing around with a legendary blade. Sure. But there is also a chance of Zoro never fulfilling his dream. I mean, you can argue for Zoro above Roger, you can argue for Zoro above Zebek, but arguing Zoro above Nika? I'm just saying, some people even said, like, I remember 10 years ago, I showed pictures of One Piece chapter and episode 0 and said, hey, look, Roger is using a sword. And people were like, nah, it's Roger. Roger is like Luffy. He's just goofing around with a blade. He's not even a swordsman. I remember those arguments. I was playing in favor of Roger being a swordsman. And Mihawk fans were like, no, you don't understand. You don't get it. Roger is like Luffy. He just wants to play with a sword. Guess what? Roger is a supreme blade user who named his son after his blade. But finally, one other point in favor of Zoro. Luffy is not going to be equal to Roger. Luffy is going to reach Roger level probably around the same time he becomes a Pirate King. But his actual goal is to be equal to Joy Boy and Nika. So, his right-hand man, have much more room to grow than merely Dark King Rayleigh. And honestly, saying merely and Dark King Rayleigh next to next doesn't make much sense, but here we are. If Zoro defeats Mihawk by the next year, and he keeps training and getting stronger, which SBS implies by saying that Zoro use 4 sword style or 5 sword style, if he keep growing, the odds of him by the age of 40 surpassing Roger is totally on the paper. I'm just saying, if Oda tells us there is no narrative need for him to be above every swordman in history, I'm fine with that. If Zoro actually surpassed Roger, again, I'm fine with that. But as of now, if I'm gonna say, give an educated guess about the power of Prime Zoro, I'm gonna say Prime Zoro, even by 1%, is probably gonna be above Whitebeard and Roger because he is a true fighter and he have more narrative about him, and this is shonen. If this wasn't a shonen, I would have said Roger gonna be above Zoro. But since at the final saga of One Piece, everybody, especially main characters, gonna get insanely stronger, and Zoro is gonna get stronger for the next 10 to 15 years, the odds of him surpassing Roger is totally on the paper for me. But if someone wants to look me in the eyes and tell me that Zoro have to surpass Roger, I will disagree. Hope you enjoyed this video. My next video is probably gonna be the ranking of every capability of Blackbeard pirates. And after that, do not forget to subscribe because Ben Beckman and Shanks are gonna coming. That sounded weird. See you all at Laughdale.